And now for another entry into my medium format rant series. This time, it's the Battle of El Doses, El Segundos. This time around, I'm going to compare the doses. The Mark IIs, El Segundos. The Fujifilm GFX 100 Mark II versus the Hasselblad 906 CFV Mark II 50C. To cut to the chase, I picked the Hasselblad. The Fujifilm is a superb camera. The autofocus is faster. It's got a joystick right on the body. The viewfinder with an adapter tilts up. That's rad. So why am I not keeping this camera? Why is this the one going to be sold to Use Photo Pro? First, it's a little bit heavy. I actually don't mind the weight too much, and I like the grip. I like that it shoots movies. I like that it has black and white and a whole bunch of film color profiles. More on that in a second. But the lenses are equally big. And, a lot of them don't really fit in my camera bag. It's always a schlep carrying all of this around. And I kind of feel like if I'm going to schlep a big camera around, I may as well either go back to the H6D or just go out and get a Phase 1 camera. Bite the bullet and get the big boy. I understand the price is wildly different, but in terms of weight, it's not that different. The Phase 1 might even be lighter. I'll put the stats up above here just to compare. But yeah, the weight is a problem. And while, often the nice grip would make me reach for this camera, I would only be using it with sort of the smaller pancakey lenses like the 50 millimeter. And then I wouldn't be getting the whole joy of using this system like with the 110 millimeter f2 here, which is the god lens for this system. It's a must get if you're getting the GFX. Like I said, it has better autofocus, a higher res viewfinder. But, that viewfinder, for some reason, just doesn't display the colors and the accuracy as well. The back screen seems not nearly as good as the Hasselblad cameras. There's something about what Fuji's doing in the way it displays that I just do not like. I don't know if it's the white balance, the color, or the size of the pixels, the digitization, the sharpening in it. It's just not as nice as the Hasselblad. It just isn't in terms of viewing experience. What else? I like all the customizable buttons on this. I love these strap lugs. Both cameras don't have a sensor protector. I think that's insane on cameras. It's expensive that neither one has it. This guy has a CF Express card. This has an SD card as well. I'd rather just have two CF Express. I don't quite understand that choice. It does have the push-in dials. I love that. Customizable buttons here. I like that too. The shutter button's a little wonky. Kind of sticks sometimes. I don't love that. But in case I haven't already said it like twice, the autofocus on this is way better than on the Hasselblad cameras, but it's still just not very good. It misses a lot. It's, Fuji focus in general is not perfect. You can't really rely on Fuji cameras if you must get the shot a lot of the time. And it's just that much worse on this. But, eye tracking does work. It actually tracks the subject when they're moving. It doesn't just recognize the face. So like compared to the Hasselblad, huge improvement over the old 100 cameras, the GFX 100 and 100S, but it's still not there and really competing with full frame cameras. So depending on what you're using it for, if you need a medium format camera that has decent autofocus, this is your guy. This is the way to go. But if you must get every shot in focus, this is not the way to go. Go with Sony, Canon, or Nikon. So why am I not keeping this camera? One, the weight. It's just too heavy with the big lenses. Like I said before, I could just get a Phase 1 if I want a big, heavy camera. Two is the color science. While, I know a lot of people love the film simulation stuff, I don't necessarily need that all the time. Sometimes I just want accurate color rendition. And I want to be able to turn off the film simulations, as it were. Basically get a linear response off the sensor. And you just can't do that with this camera. Even when you're shooting in RAW, picking a different film simulation will change the colors in the RAW file just slightly. And that is maddening to me, okay? I talked to several Fuji reps. I called in, I went to demo days and talked to the people there from Fujifilm, and they confirmed there is no way to turn off the film simulations in this camera or any Fujifilm camera. And for me, that's a huge problem. If I'm doing a commercial job, I need the colors to look like what the product looks like in real life, okay? If I'm doing certain kinds of beauty things or art things, the color has to be true to life, accurate. And so, of course, you can put the files into Capture One, which is a huge advantage, being able to use Capture One with this, and get them to look like any other camera and get them to look true to life. But a lot of times that takes work, you know. One example here is, I'll show you, is that, you know, the camera will read red things as orange sometimes. But then if you take it and you put it into Capture One and turn off the film simulation stuff, put on linear response, boom, it turns red like it's supposed to be. I don't know why you would have a commercial grade medium format camera that misinterprets the color red. It drives me nuts. So that really is probably the biggest reason. You know, the weight combined with the sort of weird, you know, white balance viewfinder. A lot of times what you see is kind of cool and blue, and then what you get is different. And you can tune it somewhat, but I just couldn't get it to the place where I liked it. I play a lot with the white balance in camera. I just couldn't quite get it there. So, like, can you get the files exactly where you want? And if you're like a master post-processor, will that be an issue? Probably not. It's great. But for me, that was just a little bit of a pain. Oh, one other thing on that 1/125 shutter speed. In the menu of the Fujifilm GFX 100 Mark II, there's this. Gotta wonder if they're ever going to make a camera that has leaf shutter lens compatibility. So then let's talk about the Hasselblad. If you watch my videos, you'll know that I've had plenty of problems with Hasselblads, especially the X2D. The acquisition of Hasselblad by DJI is just a tragedy, in my opinion. So why am I going back to this potentially abusive relationship where I'm ignored, treated poorly, and just feel bad about the whole thing at the end of it? Well, first off, is I hadn't tried this form factor. This is so rad, it's so light, and it's modular. It goes back to the H6D days, which made me so happy. That was still the best medium format camera I've ever used, is their H6D 100C. It's got this grip, fighter pilot grip, that I like a lot, which has a joystick on it, okay? And dials that make the experience very much like shooting an SLR or a mirrorless camera from, you know, one of the big manufacturers. But then you can take it off also, and then it becomes this light little, almost like travel camera guy that you can just kind of hang around your neck and, you know, carry with you. So that's really neat, as long as you don't need fast autofocus, that is. But that's pretty neat, right? I love the experience of doing this with the screen and then shooting waist level. That brings me back to the film days. And speaking of the film days, yes, you can take a 500 cm and combine it into this bad boy where you've got the whole film shooting experience for realsies with the digital back. Man, do I like that. So yeah, given the modularity, you know, there's a lot of really good things about this, and that's kind of what swayed me, is one, the lightweight nature of this. I carry this with me a lot. You know, this is kind of rapidly becoming an everyday carry camera, at least when I don't need autofocus. If I have a bag with me, I'm often taking this and then another camera, either the Fuji X100V or the Nikon FZ, in case I need autofocus that's faster than this. But more and more, this comes with me a lot, you know, and may just kind of become the everyday carry. I may give up fast autofocus, you know. Adapting the X-Pan lenses, I can zone focus. This has got a distance scale and an aperture ring, so, you know, you never know. That is something that is definitely on top of mind for me right now. And kind of playing with it, as you can see, with the lens attached to it. The autofocus is slow. When it actually focuses and nails focus, it is accurate. It just takes a while sometimes. I've noticed there's a big difference between the old version of the lenses and the new lenses, even on this camera. I'll do more about that. I've got the 55mm V series new guy coming, and then I have the 80mm f1.9. So I'll do a comparison. I might rent that 90 f2.5 again and compare the 80 and the 90. That's another thing that's definitely going to be in the works, so stay tuned if you're interested in that kind of thing. But yeah, those lenses are much smaller and much lighter. Even the 80 millimeter, which is one of the heaviest lenses in this system, is like, you know, a third or a quarter of that 110 millimeter lens when you take the body into account as well. I can put those numbers up here. But yeah, so you know, in a nutshell, weight, size and weight is a big factor for me, I'm learning. And this is super tiny and super compact and fits in any camera bag, whereas the Fuji system only fits in certain camera bags, and I got to kind of take it apart to fit in most of those camera bags as well. This, I just plop it in the camera bag, it's ready to go. You know, it remains to be seen how tough this is. So far, I've been unscrewing it and putting it in the bag separately. If I get lazy, I may start just, you know, putting it on and leaving it in the camera bag. We'll see if it's tough enough to handle that. That'll be something to talk about in the future, in a future video. You know, again, the autofocus, not great on this. But for most of the medium format level applications I'm doing, I don't need super fast autofocus. And with the newer lenses, I think I'm going to be okay. We'll see. That might drive me to buy an X2D or the new version of this guy. I do wish it a stabilization like the Fuji camera in the X2D. That's something that's missing. That leads me to shoot this more on sticks than I might with the GFX. Although in the studio, I'm shooting them both on sticks, so that's not as big of a deal. The leaf shutter, obviously much faster flash sync speed. The Fuji's a woeful 1/125th. This is 1/4000th on some of the lenses, 1/2000th on other ones. Not a huge deal for me personally, but can't hurt to have it. And then finally, yeah, just the files. You know, what I realized is that a lot of times I was editing those Fuji files to try to get them to look like what I remembered the Hasselblad files looked like. You can definitely, like, if you have a Hasselblad file up and then a Fuji X100 file, GFX 100 file up, within like 10 seconds, 15 seconds, you can make the Fuji file look like the Hasselblad file. It's, the image quality, you know, raw linear response level image quality is basically the same, you know, between the 200 megapixel sensors, and it's not really that different on this. So that's not it. It's just kind of the color science and the speed and ease of doing that, and I just like the colors coming out of this better. It makes my life a little bit easier. Also, I feel like the metering is much better on the Hasselblad. I kind of like know what I'm going to get, and that's sort of the thing between like what it looks like on the screen and then what you get in the file. It's just bang on, generally speaking. It's not a surprise like it is with the Fuji often, and I just feel like the metering is more accurate and consistent on this also. The Fuji tends to overexpose a lot, which I don't love. You kind of have to shoot the Fuji cameras a full stop underexposed to get the correct exposure, whereas this just gives you correct exposure. Yeah, I mean, I'll say, you know, the Fuji cameras with this same 50 megapixel sensor, the color was pretty bad on those. That was part of the reason I never bought one of those. But like weirdly, it's totally fine on this. The dynamic range is not as impressive as the 100 megapixel cameras. And of course, the resolution is not impressive, but the amount of dynamic range I get of this is plenty for me. The 50 megapixels is plenty for me. And actually, I kind of like the 50 megapixel files because they're smaller and they're easier to handle. My computer likes them better. I do like the two cards in here. You know, I'd rather just have two SD cards than one CF Express and internal memory, honestly. The internal memory is nice. I like Hasselblad's implementation that you just plug in the camera and the folders with your files show up, unlike the Fuji, which doesn't really do that as far as I know. I dislike that you have to use focus to get the best performance of the files, but honestly, out of Lightroom, the files are fine out of this, and that's what I've been doing, is just using Lightroom. I wish you could use Capture One. That's a huge advantage that Fuji has, that you can use Capture One, which clearly has better tools and better color rendition out of the raw files. You know, sort of it's a balance where, you know, with focus you get great colors, and then you can just import into Lightroom later once you've kind of fixed up your colors, or you do Lightroom and it's still pretty darn good. So it's not a huge deal, but I would love it if you could put Capture One on this. You know, they both shoot video. The video on here is very limited, but you can shoot it on a pinch. You know, the GFX is practically a RED camera now. So, you know, if you're shooting video and you want that medium format look, definitely the way to go is the GFX. But for me, you know, I'm not really shooting these for video. So the lightweight nature of this, especially the lenses, and the easier right out of the box color science were the two things that swayed me plus the better metering and more accurate rendition on the screen kind of tipped it all the way over. And I just kind of dig this old school form factor. It's got that retro vibe that just gets me with so many cameras. So, oh yeah, I wish it had another dial, or I wish I could switch these around so I could choose which one is aperture and shutter speed. Just one dial is a little tricky, and the shutter button's a little wonky, but no more wonky than the GFX 100. It's definitely less wonky. This is pre-DJI build quality, so it's like a rock. No lens wobble. This is all just super solid. I feel like I could whack someone in the head. It would work fine. I almost forgot this part. Capture integration, which rents Phase 1 cameras as well as Fujifilm cameras and Hasselblad cameras, had this great article entitled Fujifilm versus Hasselblad, which is right for you. And they give technical comparisons. They talk about all kinds of things. But I thought the best part of this article, and I'll link it down below in the show notes, was from Dave at Capture Integration. I think he's one of the founders of the company. And he talks about how he has interactions with both companies regularly, and he's pretty familiar with some of the inner workings of the companies. And I thought that his commentary on the article was very, very enlightening and sort of really described the difference of the experience you can expect when dealing with Fujifilm as a company versus Hasselblad as a company. And, for me, it was very hard to decide to sell the GFX 100 because I love what they're doing with medium format. I love what they're trying to do with it. I love that they went to Fotografiska in Sweden to do the launch of the GX100 Mark II. They clearly care about the art side of things. They sponsor a really great art photography podcast. I think it's called the Photography Podcast, something like that. I'll link that down in the show notes as well. Fujifilm US sponsors that. They're doing a lot of cool stuff. They have some cool artists using their cameras now. They're sponsoring some cool artists. So again, it was very hard for me to make the decision to not keep with them, and I will be keeping an eye on them because I want to support them in some ways. I'm still using the X100V. I have the full spectrum X-T4. I'm keeping an eye out for that X Pro 4. I'm hopeful they'll come out with a smaller medium format camera, more similar to the Hasselblad. They'll fix the color science thing. Just let me turn the freaking film simulations off, It's so close to being just, the best medium format solution out there. I did a test with the GFX versus Phase 1. It did pretty well. I mean, the Phase 1 is better, but it did pretty well. It's very close. But anyway, so here's this article. He talks about the professionalism of these areas are intangibles that you can't read in a graphic or chart. So and then he provides some inside data that I thought was just said it all. Fujifilm GFX bodies shipped to Capture Integration in the last 45 days. 59 bodies. Hasselblad digital bodies shipped to Capture Integration the last 45 days. 2. He says, this has nothing to do with the demand or the quality of the units. This has everything to do with how both companies conduct business today. We could sell 10 times what Hasselblad sends us. They chose to keep the demand high by keeping the supply low. And to me, this goes back to how DJI does business a little bit. They clearly did excellent marketing studies, figured out they could get away with this, and they're actually kind of cheating the consumer. You can't just go out and buy a Hasselblad camera, even if you wanted to. That's crazy to me. Fujifilm, on the other hand, GFX 100, it was in stores on launch day. I was able to buy the Mark II from, the big dog sales guy at Precision Camera the day it came out. He let me know the day before it was going to be there. That kind of supply chain, to me, is important. I need to be able to go get a camera. If one breaks down for whatever reason, I have an important shoot the next day or even the same day later in the day, I want to be able to go get another version of that camera right away. A lens goes down, whatever. And I think this extends to customer service too, the same kind of philosophy. So anyways, speaking of customer service and repairs, he writes, Dave from Capture Integration writes, only the most minor Hasselblad repairs happen in the U.S. today. After Hasselblad closed their headquarters in New Jersey, all repairs moved to the DJI facility in California with all new employees. And man, did I feel that change. It was not a good one. No previous Hasselblad service staff work for Hasselblad any longer in the U.S. Any significant repair is shipped to Sweden, which significantly slows the process. Kind of sounds like Leica, honestly. So he writes, number of U.S. Fujifilm employees that have direct working relationships with capture integration, 13. Number of Hasselblad North America employees that work with CI, basically half, 0.5. The one North American rep for both DJI and Hasselblad actually lives in Toronto. There actually is nobody in America working for Hasselblad on the sales side. No rep. It's crazy. Advance notice, Dave writes, advance notice of new products from Fujifilm. Just talking about communication. 3 weeks, at least. Advance notice of new products from Hasselblad. None. And this is a big partner. They sell and rent these cameras all the time. So, to me, those stats were very, very helpful in understanding how the two companies are doing business, how they treat their customers. So, it does hurt me a little bit that Fuji, who treats their customers much better, treats their business partners much better, is not the camera I'm keeping. But again, at a certain point, I've got to decide on image quality and what works for me in the field, in the real world. So I'm still sticking with the Hasselblad, but it does give you a little bit of agita for these reasons. Anyways, back to the video. Who is the Fuji GFX 100 Mark II for? If you're shooting a lot of video, definitely the GFX 100. If you're planning to shoot a lot of black and white, like I saw this amazing woman series. She shot black and white with the GFX 100. It was all black and white, like cowboys, I think. And the black and white out of it was amazing. So if you're shooting a lot of black and white, probably the GFX 100. If you need faster autofocus, the GFX 100. In terms of price, the GFX 100 is a better value, period. So I think like a lot of working photographers, commercial photographers, product photographers, are going to like the GFX better and going to want to get that camera. People that are kind of more of a hybrid commercial, doing like maybe fashion, but also need some video of the model dancing around and so on, GFX 100 is probably the way to go. If you're kind of more in my camp, you're an artist, you can take the time. The autofocus is not a big deal. And really it's about color rendition. Hasselblad's the way to go. Even with all of its problems and its terrible customer service, I have to say, probably the way to go. So, kind of just rambled this video out. That's kind of the deal with these medium format ramble series. Is I just kind of ramble out my thoughts, and I think that the people that are buying medium format can kind of wade through it and understand, and hopefully this was helpful to someone making that decision. So, lots more comment to come on Hasselblad cameras, especially this guy, the 907x 50, no, the 907x CFV Mark II 50C. But, between the two Mark II cameras, they're both fabulous cameras. This one just tipped the scales a little bit for me, and the Fuji's going, but both fantastic cameras. You really can't go wrong with either one. You'd be totally happy with the amazing image quality coming out of both. Both have 16-bit color, so the tonality, that medium format tonality is for sure there in both cameras. So that wasn't really a deciding factor beyond the color science, the Hasselblad natural color solution thing. So yeah, both cameras, fantastic cameras, but for me, this is just a little bit better of a fit and certainly a lighter lift. So that's what I'm doing. Would love to hear your comments below. Any questions you have, happy to answer them. Would love to hear who's using the Fuji, who's using the Hasselblad. Did I make a horrible decision as usual? Will I be like regretfully rebuying the GFX, eating that 1,000 or 2 I'm going to lose and selling it used after I bought it like 2 months ago, new. I broke my rule about buying used cameras. I bought it new. I got excited on launch day. The Precision Camera here in Austin had one. My man Robert at Precision had one, so I just bought it right off of him. I'm not going to regret that decision. Let me know in the comments below. Like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.